charge. There. Okay. This is the technology that I'm looking for. But the problem is I have to use this to control it, but I'm going to see if I can get the other remote to work first. Getting that done there. Now, we're recording the drone. Now, this device you can use to control, but it might need to be connected to the phone. I'm not for sure. But I'm recording on both ends here. It probably has to be connected to the phone. Let's see here. Oh, but I have my other technology, which is the old school technology, which we'll be using right here. Schmisty. Got it. This one right here, which is older school technology. So we'll be able to have this new technology with old school.
Pretty juicy. I like it.
Whatever you do, don't when you're older in your 50s, don't get a vanilla shake. And it's like, oh, everything's slow motion. That was a good vanilla shake.
This is only $8.90.
So I was watching Trent the Traveler and even Adam the Woo, which I don't really watch anymore because it was more exciting to see his vlogs when he was alive. You know, he seemed to be kind of like a writer trying to write himself out of a corner and get to the next part of his life. You know, it's a do-it-yourself medium. You're watching a YouTube vlogger like a movie star because you're trying to watch them write themselves out of a corner, and, you know, per se. You're trying to see them get out of their situation, even if it's at Disney World, because he had already been banned from Disney World, which is the best thing for him. But he got back in, so that's like, oh, cool. That's like a pretty interesting thing. So anyway, he figured a lot of that out. It's a parallel universe that they're creating. It's not reality. If you create reality and you were showing people reality, people wouldn't really want to watch that, especially if you're doing door to door. So I realize I've only got a small base fan, but I am getting a lot of attention on Fiction Press for my novel Rib. So how it would work is if Rib ended up taking off and people started reading it, and I was watching Manhunter last night, and it's pretty good. Manhunter is 1986, about 5 years or so before Silence of the Lambs. It's a Thomas Harris novel. Hannibal Lecter's in it, but it's not the same as Anthony Hopkins. And, you know, the cream of the crop on his series is Silence of the Lambs. It's not Manhunter. Manhunter, you could probably say borderline kind of cheesy to a certain extent, but yet also kind of cool, Criterion Channel kind of cool. Michael Mann directed it. So why I'm talking about that is if I got a shot at Rib, and Rib did take off, and let's say as a book, you know, because listen, I can't be guaranteed that it's going to be a movie. I can't be guaranteed that. That's a tough thing. Movies are millions of dollars to really make them entertaining. You can make a pretty good movie with 20 grand. But you have to pay the actors because unless you meet a very select few of people that are completely dedicated. Hang on, I'm trying to get a better shot than this. I'm just trying to cover up some information. Surely if you've been watching the show, you realize kind of what I'm doing. I don't really have to talk a whole lot other than, of course, my stories and stuff like that would not be stories without me speaking them. You can speak a novel. Give me 1 second. There we go. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you can speak a novel, you know, but there's components, there's a formulistic component to a successful vlog going all the way to Casey Neistat, to Trent the Traveler, to what Adam the Woo used to do, People like, what's his name? The guy I did a mini documentary on. Jordan the Lion, to Jacob the Carpetbagger, to Food Meets Beard, or Beard Meets Food. Anyway, I'm going to get into my dream journal in a minute, because I do talk about my dream journal in here. Regardless, what I'm saying is you have to be an expert in knowing those formalistic aspects of things. How things cut. You know that they do a lot of jump cuts and stuff. I rarely ever do a jump cut. I've done jump cuts before, but I rarely do them. So obviously I'm using this channel for something else, and people are like, not into it really, you know, because it doesn't follow their formalistic pattern that they figured out, which works for them. This goes all the way to the door and door-to-door sales, because the team that I'm working with, and I'll get, you know, I don't mind saying ADT, because ADT is one of the biggest companies in the world, or at least one of the oldest companies in the world. They're working with Google, who Google is one of the biggest companies in the world. So a lot of people work with Google. Okay, is it directly with Google? Not really, but it doesn't matter because Google's name's on it. Okay, now we're moving on forward. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is it goes all the way to the door. There is a formalistic way, knocking on the door, how you stand, how you introduce yourself, and how you get to the entry. And then once you get into the entry, there's 75% chance of selling. Now, I got into 3 of them the last time I did this on a day. I think it was Saturday, and I didn't get any of those 3 sales. There's also a thing called a manager rebuttal, which you can use to close and things like that. Okay, we got that out of the way. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a formalistic approach to probably a successful vlog, which I do not follow because it's not my main goal, really. When I set out to do all this, it wasn't like, wow, I'm going to become a YouTube star. I didn't even know what YouTube was. All I knew is that there was a time where I was a telemarketer out in White Settlement. I started a page probably in 2010. Now there's rumors that Adam the Woo started his page in 2009. Some say 2008. I even heard 2006, which I don't really believe. But you can go to his channel and tap on it, and it shows when the first vlog was uploaded, so you know how long they had been on there. It's kind of the first will be last, last will be first kind of thing. Okay. So when you are starting, you're realizing, oh, well, I can say whatever I want and I can upload. You're kind of in the dark. And then you watch other vloggers that watch style and stuff. And you got everything from Casey Neistat, who's very cinematic. He's worked with other Hollywood film directors that have gotten a lot of attention. And I'm assuming he's probably a self-made millionaire. But they don't, I'm not for sure 100%. They don't really make as much, but that's not necessarily true. Because then you have a failed Disney star who fought Mike Tyson and used YouTube as a platform to fight Mike Tyson. And he actually fought Mike Tyson. And he is a self-made billionaire, I'm pretty sure. Pretty close to it. But you don't really hear much from him. And you wouldn't, if you just came into this existence, you wouldn't go to his channel. I can't even recall his name right now. But all I know is that he fought Mike Tyson. That was kind of the pinnacle of his channel. So every channel would have like a bar or like a mountain that climbs up to the climax, to the very top of the mountain, and then it starts to decrease that way. Every career has that. Now, let's just look at some movie stars, because YouTube, they have YouTubers. They sometimes do become movie stars to a certain extent. There was Haters Back Off. She started off on YouTube. Seinfeld, I guess maybe discovered her, or someone told Seinfeld to discover her, and then she was eventually put onto Netflix. So that would be the pinnacle. Haters Back Off. I don't even know her name, right? So it's a platform. It's like a stage, you could say. It's like a new cinema house, right? You have the old school cinema house that used 35 millimeter. You were a nut if you think you're going to run off to California and get on a 35 millimeter film, which they have to be very careful with back in the day. And then that was going to be launched out to all the different movie theaters, thousands upon thousands in each state. And you were going to become a mega movie star no matter what if you hit that jackpot. That still exists. They still use 35 millimeter, but mostly it's a digital world, and that's a whole different argument. But there are people that do go out there, do follow that plan, and sometimes they do make it. Now, here's another thing. All those movie stars, which are being recycled in different movies, formalistic movies. I'll give you an example. Mark Wahlberg. He's kind of a recycled movie star. He's a good guy. he has his own channel. He works out, and that's what he does because he's part of the Hollywood system. He is, let's face it. But a long time ago, if you go back to Clint Eastwood time, Clint Eastwood did something similar because he was put into the Hollywood system, you could say. So if you weren't doing a movie, then you were horseback riding, doing ballet, you were going to, I guess, maybe like speech classes. You were being trained as a skilled actor, unless you were Marlon Brando, who didn't really participate with all of that stuff. There we go. You weren't really doing door-to-door sales, trying to sell alarm equipment, waiting to get on another movie. So, I haven't posted in like 2 days. But what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of like fake it till you make it, figure out your style, and if you make it through that system, because you can still be on YouTube and have a channel and not be making it, you can still use it as practice. So by the time they do give you a shot, then all this stuff is gold. So, if you look at a Sean Penn movie about the assassination of Richard Nixon, that did not work for the movie. It was fine, but in real life, the assassin did not hijack the plane. He tried to, and then he ended his life on the tarmac in the plane. Later on, in September 01 of 2000. I think it came out afterwards. I have to double check all this. I think it did. It probably did come out afterwards. I was thinking it came out before, but it came out afterwards because I remember seeing it when I was in the Richmond location. Okay, so that movie was a reflection of something that already happened big in the media, but it really did happen. Yeah, he really did end his life on the tarmac trying to take a plane and fly it, basically the White House. You got to see the movie. It's a Sean Penn movie. Assassination of Richard Nixon. So that was a response to something that majorly happened, and people watched it. It was pretty good. A disturbed guy that had some intelligence in the furniture business, I think, and he was like a salesman, and he got divorced and lost it and decided to kill Richard Nixon. It didn't work. It's amazing because that was an assassination plot against Richard Nixon. There's been a few on Ronald Reagan, at least one that almost happened, and Ronald Reagan was hit, but it didn't kill him, but it probably did take some years off his life for sure, because he was coughing up white foam. The Secret Service, he had a code name. They all have them. We're talking about the presidential figures. They all have a code name within the Secret Service. His was Rawhide because he was an actor. So whenever they were going to the hospital, they said Rawhide is going to the hospital, so they wouldn't say the name. But this recent thing that went on, this easily could make it into a movie. Both incidences probably will, which I think they may have already made one into a movie. So, I don't know. I mean, the whole presidential thing, it makes you think, like, do you really want to climb that mountain? And that's the mountain of, do you trust your Secret Service agents? And, like, people that could have, maybe Alec Baldwin, maybe could have, and he certainly was set up, I think. I think the whole bullet thing was set up. I think it was a conspiracy for sure, the whole Alec Baldwin thing. And they acquitted him in court, of course. They could have got him, but he obviously didn't do it. But what I'm saying is Alec Baldwin had mentioned in there, well, maybe I could run for president, that kind of thing, because actors do, Ronald Reagan started that. But you'll see in Hollywood, a lot of times it's a reflection of things that happen. And I think that movie, The Assassination of Richard Nixon, got the idea from September 11th, meaning the idea to make it a movie. We got a squirrel. I think two of them right here. There's one of them. And I say one last thing about Hollywood, and of course going into the White House, which is not much different. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party are probably going to have to eventually learn to probably work together, even though they have not been. They've been sworn enemies over the last, 4 or 5 years. And, in actuality, what I always say, there is money, but we should say that there's money to be shared. It's not like who's going to be the keeper of the money box, per se. No one really should want to be that. But as long as the energy is shared correctly, and I think some of that, Barack Obama did post a Facebook thing. It wasn't too long and not hard to understand, on Facebook, who is also kind of almost a sworn enemy between the two parties. Not the Democratic Party, of course, because he represents a Democratic Party, which there's nothing wrong with that. But he made a comment saying that we don't condone violence in democracy. It's not something that they support. They're not supporting violence. That's something that needs to be put on the table, which is true. But what I'm saying is that if people are debating, okay, there's an underlying motivation behind what they're debating on. You know, why do we want to do this? Okay, so we want to bring gas prices down. Well, why exactly? And there's motivation behind why someone debates. So if someone approaches the table and they're saying, we don't want violence, and then you've got another one that approaches the table, and, you know, because listen, and it doesn't matter how well we do as a country. It doesn't matter how well any country does as a country. Violence will always be met with violence. That's actually what the interpretation of is, put away your sword. Those that live by the sword will die by the sword. That's the proper interpretation, probably. I'm not saying that is the interpretation, but it probably is now that I think of it. I always thought it meant that if you live by your sword, then you'll eventually die by what you live by, right? So a police officer, for example, has to have his sword on him, which is his weapon. He has to have it on him at all times by law. Even when he goes to bed at night, it's right there next to him because he's made an oath, sworn to live by that. I realized that interpretation is a little bit different. It means that if you use violence, then violence will be met against you. It's different than having to swear an oath and be a soldier for the rest of your life, if you know what I mean. And as the commander-in-chief, kind of a soldier position, it is. George Washington was a soldier. So it's a weird kind of thing. You know, you have to kind of think about it. Like, what is an oath? And as a Christian, who they have mentioned it recently, okay? There's a guy out in California that was a little messed up, Torrance. He was possibly could have been a teacher, that kind of thing. Okay. He was contemplating those ideas in a way. He was mentioning the Christian thing. Okay. They're finding a manifesto. He was mentioning it and trying to interpret it and stuff. So he was kind of confused about some of these ideals, but he was also a computer engineer. It's very Assassination of Richard Nixon kind of thing. If you ever seen that movie with Sean Penn, you know, he obviously was probably, I'm assuming, and the Secret Service guys, I don't think they killed him. They could have killed him. They probably knew that this guy probably had glossy eyes and was living literally in a parallel universe, you know, had armed himself pretty heavily. So you have to realize, you know, is it more valuable to kill someone like that or to learn from them, you know? I don't know if they learned a lot from people like Squeaky Fromm, for example. The guy that's shopping right now that shot Reagan, he goes shopping. He's actually a free man, and he shot Ronald Reagan. And there was another president, too, that had been shot by an assassin. I don't think it's Theodore Roosevelt or someone like him. He was kind of a personality, and they were going to tackle him and beat him to death, basically. And the president requested at that moment, don't kill him, don't kill him. They didn't kill him, and said they took him to the hospital, because they did beat him up. But he shot one of the presidents a long, long time ago. A few presidents had just been shot, you know. Ronald Reagan was one of them. Trying to think of what that guy's name was. But anyway, they all have names. They all become famous. And then you have, of course, Lee Harvey Oswald, who was maybe on the genius level, but made a few panic mistakes, if he was the one that did it, made a few panic mistakes, being panicky, and then ended up getting killed, I guess, by the mafia. And then you see that kind of assassination, which took place in like 11/22, 63, And you're saying, oh, this country is kind of weird. There's been a play written about it. It's loosely related to the Scottish play that Shakespeare wrote, which we don't usually, actors don't say that name. It starts with an M. There's another one called Macbird, and that's a play you have to read, talking about conspiracy. It gets Alan Pukala and stuff like that. So that's kind of still in Hollywood. There's still like a deep throat. There's still this secret whisper and stuff like that, and probably always has been. There's always been that kind of secrecy that's going on. Now, if you notice, when it happened, it was in a dark place. They were moved from one room to another really quickly. You know, it was like a dark dining room, you know, and then you're seeing everything in a black and white, very grainy footage of this guy just running by. He was obviously just a complete nut, you know. So they had to spend about an hour and a half to figure out if it was a possible coup, because they've had one, January 6th. So this might top the pinnacle of American history of coming to a disabled, or you could say an unstable Washington, D.C., an unstable, I don't even know what to call it, but an instability in the government. Well, they're amazing animals. They can put up with all this heat. All they do all day are find nuts and bury nuts. And they take to the trees.
Tenemos más influencia con sus hijos que tú tienes.